I love Apple Notes, but there are a few things that really do my head in. Apple, please watch this video and fix these 10 things. I love Apple Notes and I use it literally every day. In fact, I've got a video on this channel about 10 things I love about Apple Notes. Link in the description. However, exactly because I use it every day, over time I've spotted quite a few things that don't work in the right way. So today we're going to go through that list, starting from the least annoying feature and then working our way up to the most annoying one. And we're going to do it in a scientific way. This is the way we like it, right? With the help of a tool developed by the prestigious German University of Marzipan Freudenschade, which is called the Frustration Level Observation Processor, or in short, the FLOP. No favorite pens and colors. I have an iPad with an Apple Pencil, and very often I take written notes. I normally use a blue pen, but on many occasions I turn to a red pen, maybe slightly thicker, if I want to make something that I've written more visible. Many other apps, like OneNote, GoodNotes, Notability, NoteShelf, pretty much all of them, will give you the possibility to save your favorite pens and colors. But Apple Notes, no, it's not possible. Why? I don't get it. It's such a simple feature. So in Apple Notes, if you want to change color and thickness, you need to select a new color, select a new thickness, write what you need to write, and then to go back to your previous pen, you have to select the color and the thickness again. And you need to do this back and forth every time you want to switch from one pen to the other. It just doesn't make sense. A possible workaround, which may be useful to someone, is to write everything in the same color and then select the text that you want to change and change its color. You can't change the thickness though, but at least it's a way of potentially saving time. Next in line is limited formatting options. Limited formatting options. This is probably not that important, although it can help adding visual interest to your notes. How come? It is not possible to add a very simple highlighter or maybe colors to the text that you type on iPad or iPhone. Especially considering that changing the color of the text is actually possible on the Mac, and these changes are perfectly rendered on the iPhone and iPad. So it works one way, it should also work the other way. The next thing is that you cannot write on images. Now, this is a little nuisance because it is indeed possible to write on images if you don't mind going the extra step. The extra step being that you need to click on the image to open it, then you write on it, and then you save it back to the note. However, there is a catch, and the catch is that you cannot write on the image as part of your note. So for example, you can't circle something in your picture and then draw a line that connects it to a piece of text. This thing is absolutely possible in many note-taking apps, such as OneNote, for example, and there is absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be possible in Apple Notes. Next in line is no zoom. When I write something, sometimes I realize that I need to make a small addition to a sentence. Maybe I need to add a small detail or a missing word. What I do in other apps is that I zoom in and make the text big enough so that I can go in with my pencil and write whatever text I need to add. Apple Notes, no, it doesn't give you that possibility. So you better make sure you don't make mistakes. Or maybe you keep a magnifier glass next to your iPad and use that to pretend you're zooming in. Next up is links instead of content. This is a small but annoying thing. When I try to save a web page in Apple Notes, 99% of the time I'm interested in its content. So the article that I'm reading or the blog post that I'm checking out. But Apple Notes will save it as a link. And I don't like that because A, every time I want to access that content, I have to reload the page, which is of course not possible if I have no connection. And B, more importantly, because if that content, if that page disappears or if it simply changes, I won't be able to retrieve the original content anymore. I know that there are workarounds that will allow you to save a full web page or maybe just the article you're reading. But in my opinion, these ways are not very consistent. Sometimes I've ended up saving half the article, for example. And in general, they're cumbersome. And these are the reasons why I just don't use this feature. Next, updates are few and far between. Apple Notes is a great piece of software, and I'm not particularly interested in having new features and updates just for the sake of it. However, the difference in release cycles between other apps which normally release monthly updates, and Apple Notes is striking because you only get new features when there is a new version of the operating system that gets released by Apple, and that normally happens once a year. Next thing is basic page options. If you've ever tried other note-taking apps, you must have noticed how many options they give you for page backgrounds. Apple only gives you 3 options: blank, stripes, or squares, which is really a bit embarrassing. I personally only use the blank background, but I do miss the possibility of having more complex choices, such as a weekly planner, or even simple ones such as the dotted background. Needless to say, you cannot import your own background, which is something that is actually possible with all the major competitors, such as NoteShelf, GoodNotes, Notability, and so on. I guess more complex designs probably wouldn't work too well with the Apple Notes Infinite Scroll, but I think I could settle for something smaller than that, which is the ability to at least change the background color of my notes. And the way I would use that is that I would turn the background of every note where I have an action point, a task to complete, or something that I have to do, to red, so that when I look at my notes in gallery view, I would immediately spot the red notes and I would know that there is something in there that I have to do. We're now getting into the part of this list where every missing feature is an important one. The first one I'm going to mention is no Markdown support. Markdown is a huge time saver when I'm writing, and it's, I think, becoming the de facto standard for note-taking apps. Apple Notes does not support Markdown. Obsidian, which is an app that I love, uses Markdown extensively, and that helps massively when I'm writing. I can keep my fingers on the keyboard and I can stay in the flow instead of being distracted by having to grab my mouse and selecting options. So it's definitely a tremendous feature which is missing in Apple Notes. And to be honest, I think that Apple Notes will at some point introduce Markdown support, maybe in one of the next releases. But for now, it is a missing feature and definitely an important missing feature. Proprietary format. This is a serious issue. All of your notes are stored in an encrypted database that only Apple can access. So the more notes you have, the more you need to rely on Apple to keep your notes safe, secure, and accessible. And what would happen if at some point Apple decided to discontinue Apple Notes? Exporting notes out of Apple Notes is actually possible. So if you wanted to move to a new system, for example, you could look at exporting your existing notes into the new system. But the process is cumbersome, is tedious, and if you have many notes, it will take ages. So although you're not technically locked in practical terms, let's put it this way, you have a very strong exit barrier. I don't expect Apple to discontinue Apple Notes anytime soon, but they do have a track record of discontinuing apps. For example, a few years back, in 2014, they decided to discontinue Aperture, which was their professional photo app. And they basically left many thousands of photographers around the world without their professional workflow. This lack of certainty around the destiny of my notes is one of the 2 main reasons why I now use Obsidian as my main knowledge management system. And it is definitely the reason why I don't keep my Forever Diary in Apple Notes, but I keep it in Obsidian instead. The other main reason is that in Apple Notes, you cannot link your notes. Apple Notes is great at capturing thoughts and ideas and images and quotes and whatever you can capture. But when you think of a knowledge management system, you should think of a system that has, let's say, 3 levels. The base level is your collection of notes. These are ideally atomic notes or single notes that are kept separate, and Apple Notes operates extremely well at this level. But when you want to bring your notes to the next level in your knowledge management system, you need to start linking them. That way, you can connect ideas and potentially discover new pathways that ultimately will lead you to the next level in your knowledge management system, which is the level where you start creating original ideas based on all the notes and connections that you've discovered. The good news is that, as I have mentioned at the beginning, iOS 17 has partially fixed this problem by introducing the ability to link notes. And this is definitely a step in the right direction. So why do I say this is a partial fix? The reason is that linking notes, especially on iPhone, is a bit cumbersome. You have to tap on the text to highlight it, click on a couple of menus, and then select the target note. This is acceptable, of course, when you're creating the occasional link, but it adds too much friction when you want to add multiple links without losing your flow. Also, the navigation is not great on the iPhone. If you click on a link, you move to the next note, but then there is no way to get back to the previous note. The situation is slightly better on the Mac because there is a keyboard shortcut that you can use to access your notes. You have to type two greater than signs, and then you start typing some letters of the notes that you want to link to. Notes will give you a list of links or the ability to create a new one. But again, there is no easy way to move back and forward between notes. By the way, the same shortcut is available on iPhone and iPad. You can type a couple of greater than signs and then type the letters of the notes you want to link to. However, accessing the symbols menu on the iPhone keyboard requires a few extra clicks, which again make the entire process a bit more cumbersome than I would like to.